Okay, so I know you guys knew this was coming. I mean, come on. Your boy won. He did. He did that. His campaign did that. You can rejoice for the soon-to-arrive tariffs. You can shout to the heavens that you will see further removal of abortion and reproductive rights of women. You can have a toast and a shot to the ending of the education department or even further decrease of its ability. Mississippi, you're gonna have a whole lot of company down there at the bottom. Raise your guns because you'll be able to check the genitals of everyone you engage with if you get a hint that they might be trans for whatever reason. Fire those guns that are now raised because we are going to begin the process of removing 10 or 15 or 20 million illegals, apparently, and protect the dogs and the cats. Crank up that broken down truck and prepare to drive that thing with the windows up and half working AC on full blast, because no matter what you do, climate change is coming. You hate healthcare costs. Well, buckle up, smack a band-aid on that broken leg. You're American. Not only can you not afford the hospital, but soon won't be able to afford it even more, and that is okay. You're an American. Pop open a bottle of Jack Daniels whiskey, do some illicit drugs, and you'll be alright. Oh, and don't you worry one bit about any of those wars going on around the world. They'll only send the kids who lose access to education of a certain standard that only money will soon be able to afford, so basically kinda like right now, but even worse. And if we are lucky, he pushes the red button. You know what button he hasn't pushed, and likely neither have you? The subscribe button. Red, blue, white, green, orange? Okay, actually now that I think about it, maybe not orange, considering the topic of today's video. Oh my God! But all range of voters can be awesome, amazing, and unique if they just click that subscribe button. Just like the last video, we are going to start going off script from this point. But I will tell you why you don't want everything I said earlier, and also why voting for Donald Trump and the Republican red wave we are witnessing will only harm this country in a way that a Democrat can only cry about in their dreams. Before you click away, blue voters, you need to watch this too. I know red voters aren't going to click away considering they think I am out to insult them and make them out to be the devil, of which I'm not going to do that. I mean, unless you're a neo-Nazi, fascist, or racist who claims they have a black friend. Consider a black guy walking on the street as a sign that a neighborhood is going downhill, has an income of more than $1 million in your household, or maybe thinking about whether I might reveal that the biggest problem for their specific congressman isn't that they want to drink and drive, but have wet dreams instead about being Jeffrey Epstein. But blue voters, you need to be in here too, because you kind of need to understand where Republicans are coming from, or at least have talking points to tell them it's not working out for you the way you think. Now that we got that out of the way, let's dive in.
And the mantra was, it's the economy, stupid.
So when it comes to the Republican Party, one of the biggest talking points of this election cycle was the economy. And to be fair, the economy is dog shit right now. Now, I know countless people from the Biden administration will tell you that inflation is down and that the economy has a good outlook and that it's growing again and it's actually pretty strong, which they're not wrong. I know you guys don't want to admit to that, and that's okay, that's fine. But here's the thing, the stock market, consumer price index, and the fact that the rich keep getting richer is not a good measure of whether the economy is doing well or not. What is a good measure is, of course, the literal suffering of everyday folk. There are more people we know that are living paycheck to paycheck. There are more people that we know that are falling out of the middle class and entering the poor class. A lot of people that voted red because Trump was planning to throw in these tariffs. Now, I know many of you think that tariffs affect the foreign company and allow American-made goods to be more competitive. First, let's give you the definition of a tariff. According to Investopedia, one of the ways governments deal with trading partners they disagree with is through tariffs. A tariff is a tax imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another to influence it, raise revenues, or protect competitive advantages. Tariffs work when the economy of the country that is implementing the tariffs is super strong. And what I mean by that is not based off of the stock market, not the consumer price index. What I mean by that is based off of the household income. A tariff will work if households have more income to spare to sort of bear the brunt that the tariffs are going to cause, because you see, tariffs don't charge back to the company that made the product and sent it. There's no way the US government could do that without infringing on the sovereignty of another government, so they don't do that. Tariffs are essentially transferred costs from the person who's selling the item in your country to you.
There's only one answer to the question, who pays US tariffs? And it's a simple one. The answer is importers, namely US companies and consumers. Tariffs are a tax on imports paid by importers. It's that simple. But somehow, there's a misunderstanding about how tariffs work.
If they've got to pay an extra $10,000 per container that comes in, they're going to increase the cost on the products inside that container. That's how this works. And that cost then transfers to you. So in the end, they still get their same amount of profit, if not more, because the tariff is something that's really only good for rich people in essence. Tariffs aren't going to make your life any better. They're just going to make everything that you want to buy expensive. I know what you're thinking, oh, American companies can make their prices competitive. No, the American companies are going to keep their prices the same. The tariffs are going to add a little bit more money to each item that you buy, but not enough for you to say, I'm going to spend an extra $3 beyond that, or an extra $10 beyond that, or an extra $30 beyond that, or however the increase is, so you can get the American made thing. You're not, because your money is now going to be then stretched even further thin than it already is, if not the entire thread just broken. That's how tariffs work. They don't help the poor. They don't help the lower middle class, and that is where most of us sit, okay? Whether you want to admit it or not, it is.
Now the Wisconsin Supreme Court set to decide the future of abortion in Wisconsin and whether the state's 1849 ban is still valid today.
I fear that what you are asking this court to do is to sign the death warrants of women and children and pregnant people in this state, because under your interpretation, they could all be denied life-saving medical care.
It remains on the books. Policymakers have not repealed it. Indeed, they have expressly declined to do so at multiple opportunities, and until they do, it can be enforced.
Abortion and reproduction rights are another topic that Republicans voted kind of on. I mean, it was already taken away, but to allow Trump to further delay its return, I guess. Really sure what the point of having that as a talking point on the Republican side was, because you've already done the thing, right? The only thing you could do further is a federal ban on abortions, and I know you can all say Trump said he's not going to do that. I don't know. It's something in me deep down that just makes me not believe the guy who has historically lied a shit ton. And also, I don't believe politicians. So, but as far as the talking points of abortion and reproductive rights, no one in the freaking world is stating that they make it legal for all women to be forced to get an abortion. No one is saying that every woman has to get pregnant at least once to get an abortion. No one is carrying out a post-birth abortion just because they're in a Democratic city and because Democratic politicians said so. If that was the case, I assure you, I'm pretty sure that the Democrats in the city would be more angry than you, especially if the person was a minority.
He's climbing in your windows, he's snatching your people up, trying to. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband, because they're everybody out here.
No doctor is going to do those things either. Okay, so the only time an abortion is done early on, more than likely, is simply because A, the mother made a mistake, because sex happens, and not everybody uses protection every time, and even then that protection is not 100% guaranteed. Or B, the mother knows that they can't properly care for the child, and you might say, oh, well, then put it in the orphanage system. I don't know if you noticed, but it's like literally a running stereotype in this country that to be an orphan is to basically be passed around from home to home, getting beat, abused, or neglected until you maybe one day get lucky and still look young enough to be adopted. Okay, so let's skip that one. The next version of abortions when it comes to early on is there might just be a medical issue, or obviously some sort of crime.
I am the law.
Happened that resulted in the pregnancy, and the mother just wants to get rid of the problem, to get rid of the reminder of the crime. which is the R word crime. That's early abortions. That's it. No one is hurt. Child doesn't have a heartbeat. Baby looks more like a freaking tadpole than it does a human being. Most of the time, it's not even a fully dropped down embryo. Midterm abortions happen because there's a medical issue with the baby, and it's something that will ensure that the baby will not live a good life, a stable life. It might not even be able to live beyond birth. It might already be a non-viable baby. It's not something that just women are doing because they're crazy. Do you think you, as a woman, if you're a female voter, a female Republican voter, do you think that you, if you were a Democrat, would just randomly go out and get abortions after 5-6 months? Just because you wanted to, just because it was like, oh, I got a free Sunday. Another thing with that is usually there is some kind of complication where continuing the pregnancy will likely result in the death of the woman. So yeah, I would choose the life that is currently here over the life that we have no guarantee of at all. Late term abortions, which is a dumb term because it's just an abortion. The late term part is a misnomer to make you hate it. Abortions that happen within, 8 or 9 months are essentially happening because the baby has somehow died. The baby's complications in life are expected to be so massive, it will not have any sort of second where it exists without pain. And again, the woman likely will die if they have the baby. Babies are not aborted post-birth, okay? Because that's not a thing, because the baby is then born. That is murder.
You are now a murderer, little Alex. A murderer.
And also, I find it interesting that some of you are saying, well, it's not illegal everywhere. But the problem with that is not everybody has the money to hop on a freaking G6 or take a plane ride or whatever to a state that has legalized abortion. And some states are making it to where if you do that, you will go to jail for going to a different state to get an abortion. You'll go to jail. That seems exclusionary based off location, which is weird coming from the Republicans, considering the fact that you often say you're the forgotten majority, as if people are excluding you because you live in rural areas, and excluding you because you are the so-called backbone of America, and excluding you because you're the Americans that, I don't know, didn't forget or some shit, whatever, I don't know. But it's weird that you can be upset about that, but you can't be upset about the exclusion that women in Texas are currently enduring, to where they can't really go much abroad when it comes to medical care for reproductive health, because there's a possibility that they could be charged with a crime when they return.
This is Anna. She just graduated from college in the United States. And this is Sophia. She also just graduated from college in Finland. Anna and Sophia both want to be middle school teachers, but it turns out there's a good chance their experiences will be very different. So different that Anna is twice as likely as Sophia to leave teaching for good. That's causing a problem. The supply of new certified teachers in the United States is shrinking.
As far as the education department and the Republican problems with that, no teacher is allowed to trans your kids. No teacher is allowed to make your kid gay. No teacher is allowed to do anything other than ensure that your child is able to learn in a safe environment, and not alone when the inevitable school shooter arrives to alter their lives completely or end them. Oof. And I know that may sound like dark humor, but this is America, let's be real. We have a school shooting at least twice a week. Either way, 1 or 2 is just one too many, right? Right? I hope you said yes, because if you didn't, then seek help. Teachers can't do much if you think about it. Plus, some of y'all kids are just assholes. So a lot of teachers have to deal with just badass baby kids with no manners and no damn respect. And on top of that, they're broke as shit. And on top of that, they have to work a job during the summer because they don't get paid for 4 months out of the year, even though their life still continues and they're still technically legally a teacher. And if they were to do something during the summer that can give them rest, they could still lose their job as a teacher. I don't think teachers are transing your kids. I think your kid was just transgender and didn't know it. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's going to change the dynamic of your family. But guess what? It's called life. Gay people exist. Lesbians exist. All the members of the Alphabet Mafia exist. They ain't done nothing to you. They just exist. What's wrong with that? You exist. No one's coming after you. And I know what you're thinking. Donald Trump said they are. No, they're not. They're just not. The only reason why they went after January 6ers is because one cop died. That's really that. I mean, that's it. And the image of it was just so shit that if they didn't go after anybody, we'd really be a laughingstock. What are they gonna come after? Your 4x5 wide trailer in West Virginia? What are they gonna come after? Your crappy job in the middle of fucking bumfuck Egypt, Idaho? What are they gonna come after? Your Montana ranch that has like 5 cows on it? They're not coming after you. I assure you. They're not. They're not even going after the rich people. They're under fucking funded organizations all across the government. You're okay. Secondly, charter schools are the second worst method for your child to get an education. Not all charter schools are bad, but most are. They are often politically backed, and therefore they push a narrative for your child that isn't neutral. Maybe not the narrative that is right, or maybe it is. But wouldn't it be better if they learn neutrally and aren't exposed to those ideas that you don't know? That way they can come to their own logical conclusions. That's the whole point of education in the first place. And also, I find it weird that they get public funding, but then you have to ask for permission for your child to be enrolled in them. Doesn't it seem weird to you that, we give money to them, but then we have to ask for our children to go there? I mean, it seems like that's a public school, just exclusionary for certain reasons, such as income or race, but And then the next step in destroying the education department comes to the point of private schools, which are the worst method for children to learn and the most expensive, okay? And I know that's saying a lot because homeschooling exists and it gives us a lot of very good jokes to make about weird kids, but private school is awful. It is god awful. And I know what you're thinking. Private school is where all the smart kids come out of. They're all smart. No, their mom and dad pay for them to get C's and B's so that way they look good and then can get into college. There are some smart kids, don't get me wrong. But here's why private schools are bad, okay? In 2021, according to Education Data Initiative, you can expect to pay, on average, $12,790 in tuition for your child to attend one private school, with some costing as much as $60K. That's not college. That's elementary school, middle school, and high school. Who has the money to pay $12,000 per year? Might as well say $13,000 per year for one child. Several of you all have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children. Could you imagine having that tuition? That's essentially a down payment on a home if you had 6 kids, if you had 5 kids, just for them to go to private school. So if you think private school is a solution, it's not. And I know what you're thinking. There's vouchers everywhere. You get the vouchers for this and vouchers for that. If your income is less than $65,000, have you ever seen one of the vouchers? Were you ever given the opportunity to apply for a voucher? All right, I rest my case. Genital checks. We're gonna make it quick. Gonna make it sweet. I'm gonna make it simple. I do not believe, and I know this may be a controversial thing for some deep right-wingers, but I do not believe that adults should be checking children's genitals. I don't give a fuck if it's a sporting event. I don't care if it's a school fundraiser. I don't care if it's a freaking sleepover. Adults checking genitals that aren't their medical caregivers and there's not a problem, or it's the once a year physical, is already one too many adults checking the genitals of children. It's an awkward situation for the children and the doctor, okay? But it happens once a year and it has a medical understanding reason. There is no medical understanding reason for checking the genitals of a child, and here's why. And I'm gonna explain this to you, and I know this stuff because, again, this is my letter of the alphabet mafia, so shut up and listen, because I know more than you do, and I know that's a hard thing for you to understand. I know that's a hard thing for you to humble yourself to, but you've made it this far in the video, so why the fuck not?
Reason number 2. Look what I can do.
What? What does that have to do with anything?
No. He's got a point.
Simple. Trans women, once they start taking estrogen, lose muscle. That's how estrogen works. It takes your muscle, chews it up, turns it into fat. Trans men, yes, they take testosterone, and yes, in normal conditions, say if you were a man and you were I don't know, fighting in UFC or training to be the world's fittest man or some shit or whatever, and you took testosterone, it's highly likely it would improve your performance. However, trans men don't get just like all of the testosterone in the world. You're put in the normal average levels of an average male based on your age throughout the entire process, which means you have to work extra hard to keep muscle definition because that testosterone will always flow through your system in waves. It will never be continuous like a regular male. So just stop. Most of you don't even like interact with a trans person knowingly, but you have. They're not demons. They're not some evil crawling out of the fucking woodworks like you think they are. They're not after your children. They got their own problems, just like you. Okay, I assure you, 100%.
We start with this, though. President-elect Trump has said he will move swiftly to implement mass deportations after he takes office.
Brooke here right now with reaction to this plan. Brooke.
Yes, so President-elect Trump ran on a crackdown, a platform of a crackdown, an incoming crackdown on undocumented immigrants. That vow has left many immigrants frightened and confused.
Removal of illegals is something that Trump and JD Vance hawked on greatly, especially in the closing weeks of the election cycle. So I get if you think illegals are taking your jobs or causing crime because you don't understand them and they don't speak English or whatever, and that is concerning for you. Let's just skip over how all those things are a fucking problem and an example of you being a racist. Just you put a pretty bow on the door rather than the Nazi logo. And that also might be, to be all fair, that might be just ignorance talking. Let's skip over that and let's address something that I don't think any of you understand when you call for this deportation of illegal migrants. Many farms across the country make use of migrant workers to provide everything from oranges, grapes, potatoes, cabbage, lettuce, peanuts, apples, plants, so forth and so on. And especially in rural farm towns, migrants are a big deal. Having them available to work is a big deal, especially in rural Pennsylvania style towns that have these large family-owned farms that have everything from mushrooms to spinach to whatever growing in them that requires a lot of hands because A, the technology is not there to pull the thing out of the ground. Sure, it's there to get it in the growth and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, that labor is done in a lot of cases by migrants. And the same thing goes for the housing market. Majority of these large neighborhoods are basically built up by companies that hire a crap ton of migrant workers, whether they're legal or illegal. Same thing when it comes to business offices, skyscrapers, the whole 9 yards. Outside of New York, most construction is done without unions, and therefore there is no requirement to have certain papers that you would only be able to get through being a citizen and being a member of a union. Okay, so most construction you see, it's probably several migrant workers involved. Some are legal, some are not. Now, you could argue whether that is right or wrong. Obviously, I think that's wrong because it's essentially using them as the new slave class, because you can hold it over their head that they're illegal, the ones that are, and then the ones that are legal, you can pay them a shit less because at the end of the day, they're not American citizens, right? They don't have to meet a certain quota to pay these people. And you know, it is what it is on that situation. That can only be fixed by forcing these company owners who are cheap assholes to properly can pay people. Once they properly pay migrants and all this other stuff, you'll start to see people wanting those jobs again. You'll start to see people wanting to be a construction worker because the income is good. You start to see people wanting to work farms and see farm towns come back to life because people are going to have a reason to go there and be there and work there. It's not the migrants' fault. Okay, and it definitely is not going to be solved by deporting the migrants. And not only that, every single time in human history where a nation tries to en masse deport people, it never times infinity, never ends well. Both sides get stained, okay? The side you're on, America, is already tediously flirting with pariah state already. Our support of Israel is already making us not have any standing when it comes to the UN. We do a mass deportation and that's done. Okay, all eyes are always on us all the time. So when we mess up, immediately we face backlash. We are facing the backlash of supporting Israel. We are. What do you think the backlash will be for us to deport 20 million so-called illegals? How do you do that? How do you even confirm that? Are they going to come to everyone's house and just knock on the door and force you to stand outside while they search your home in case they think there's some illegals? Your neighbor who you hate could just tip off ICE and say, yeah, their basement has a shit ton full of them. I see them sneaking out at night, even though they don't, just because they're trying to get back at you. Imagine the chaos that would cause. And on the side of migrants who won't have the luxury of having their home illegally searched and seized, instead, they'll have the luxury of death inside camps that cannot properly provide for the massive amount of people that will fit in them. New York has 8 million people in it on a pretty decently sized island. There's a ton of homeless people in New York. There's a ton of people living paycheck to paycheck in New York. There's a ton of people getting evicted in New York. Now, how do you think America is going to treat camps with 20 million illegals, as Trump claims? How do you think those people are going to be treated? And I know, maybe you're saying to yourself, well, they're not American citizens. If they wanted to be treated right, they shouldn't have come here. To which I say, you're a fucking demon, okay? Secondly, maybe you shouldn't have come here because your family did not come here, unless you're a Native American, in which case, hey, speak your mind. But those people are going to be killed in large numbers, whether it is unsanitary conditions, improper food provisions, or simply the nature of the camp itself. Because you've got to have these countries that these people come from willing to take them back. This process is not something that happens overnight. You think deportation is quick. It's only quick if they haven't got through the border. Once they got through the border, deportation is a long process. And it's a process that the other country they're from has to agree with. And if they don't, you can't just plop them all in Mexico, because Mexico is going to have a problem with that. Mexico might even think about military deployment, in which case you're going to have a bunch of innocent people who are just trying to find a better life. They're following the migrant story of America, killed in the process. It's not a good look. It's not. And if you voted red all the way down the ballot for this, you need help. As far as climate change, go over this quick as well. I said it in my video on the damage by the hurricanes. This is the new norm. Every year, 1 or 2 or 3 hurricanes break the record of the previous hurricanes. This is the new norm. This is climate change. And you can say scientists are wrong or whatever. You can say that I don't believe everything Democrats tell me. You could say, well, it's hot as hell in Mississippi all the time, so it's just gonna be hot as hell all the time. You can say all that you want to, but do not ignore the evidence you see daily. Florida is not supposed to get struck every time by literal hurricanes that straight up destroy entire sections of the state. Okay, the whole joke about Florida, man, is the fact that a Category 2 hurricane does not scare them. They know they can weather that out. Category 3, a couple of them might leave, but most are gonna weather it out. Category 4 and 5, within the span of 24 hours, is not normal. That's why Floridians were leaving Florida when those hurricanes were approaching. That's why everybody was worried about the guy on the fucking boat, because those are not normal. And that's happening in front of you. So do not act like you cannot see the evidence of the very thing you denied taking place in front of you. And if you want to continue to act like that, build a rocket ship and fly yourself to the sun, because at that point, I can't do anything to help you. As far as healthcare costs, let me tell you the solution to healthcare costs in America. And I know for a lot of you, you're gonna call me a communist, you're gonna call me, I don't know, a fascist or whatever, not knowing that you're incorrect entirely. The only route to lower healthcare costs in America in our current form is for the government to be able to negotiate all medication prices. Every other OECD country in the world basically does this. So that way that people can afford to be healthy. Because a healthy person is also a very consistent worker. A non-healthy person is a very inconsistent worker. So maybe a good idea for the government to negotiate pharmaceutical prices. So that way we can all just be healthy. We can all not have to worry about whether we can afford our next prescription and move on with our lives. Figure something else out to do. Now, the best solution is universal health care. I'm not even gonna put that in your face right now because, you know, you're on a high. You're probably gonna only just pick that apart in some attempt to further increase that high, but there is no way to pick apart universal health care. It's a small tax on everyone, so that way you can walk into a hospital and walk out without a bill. I don't understand why a father has to pay $3,000 to hold their child after birth. I don't understand why average delivery cost for a baby is $10,000 at a hospital. I don't understand why you could break a finger and walk out with a $3,000 hospital bill. That doesn't make sense, okay? None of that stuff makes sense. It just doesn't. And you know it. I know it. Stop bullshitting about it. Now, granted, I'll give you this. Democrats did not say shit about healthcare significant enough to move the needle in their direction. I will give you that. Neither did Republicans. Sorry, that shit doesn't pop up on the radar whatsoever. We can't expect pharmaceutical companies and corporations to regulate themselves, okay? You know what industries regulate themselves? The train companies regulate themselves. Ask East Palestine, Ohio, how that worked out for them. Hollywood regulates itself. Ask the countless victims of sexual abuse that we have learned about, from Weinstein to the weird guy at Nickelodeon and so forth and so on. The list is freaking endless. And yes, that includes the diddler. Tech companies regulate themselves, and Mark Zuckerberg basically is making a killing by selling all our information to everyone. Your shitty McDonald's job regulates itself, and everyone hated working at McDonald's because at the end of the day they're going to choose profit over people. And I know what you're thinking, it's a business, it's built to make money. Yes, but there is a certain point where we can say a cutoff. Not because we hate that business or whatever, but because morally there needs to be a cutoff. Because if there isn't a cutoff, then I suggest you understand how they lived in the Middle Ages and prepare yourselves. Now, as far as the wars around the world, okay?
Many people look at the Middle Ages through romantic eyes. They think about armored knights on lumbering steeds, beautiful damsels in pointy hats, dragons, chivalry, and courtly love. Nothing could be further from the truth. For most people, the Middle Ages were dirty, difficult, and really quite dangerous. Let's find out now why it was unlikely that you could stay alive and prosper, and why you were likely to die quite quickly during that time. Welcome to Medieval Madness.
Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. They're both kicking ass when it comes to major global conflicts. They are. America will always have their hands in things. It's how we operate, remember? We are the world's police force. We volunteered for that role. But let me ask you, especially veterans, and I mean especially veterans, of which I know many of you are Republican. Do you think the wars we have been in since World War II were for the best interest of ensuring order in the world, or was it for something pointless that was inevitable and America just wanted to get what it could while the getting was good at the cost of your comrades, your sons, your daughters, fathers, uncles, aunts, cousins, and fellow Americans? Bet you it's that last one, because I can't think of a war past World War II where we were truly fighting a fucking good fight. Name one in the comments below and I'll let you know how you were wrong. I mean, just look at the last war we got out of in Iraq and Afghanistan. Remember those weapons of mass destruction they told us, and the fact that the Taliban were sheltering Al-Qaeda, yet we ended up killing Al-Qaeda's leader in a fucking mansion in Pakistan, and he had been there all along, basically. And lastly, look, Trump having his hand at the wheel is dangerous. Anyone having their hand solely at the wheel is dangerous. However, no one's truly had their hands at the wheel with the level of power Trump will have during these next 4 years. Remember, the Supreme Court essentially said, as long as the president is doing a presidential act, there's immunity. So there is no repercussion short of an all-out freaking collapse of the United States to keep him in check. And I know some of you are going to say Trump is a true patriot, Trump is this, Trump's not going to betray the Constitution, Trump's gonna make this country better, yada yada, Trump won't harm us, Trump has all our best interest in mind. And my only response to that is no. No. Just no. And I know you're not used to hearing that, okay? I know it hurts your fifis. But when you are a part of the greatest, most powerful empire that has ever existed, and it is an empire, and after the first 4 years we had of this guy, we all thought we were done with it, and here we are again. And I know you're thinking, Well, we were on lockdown for 2 years because of COVID during his presidency, during the end part of it. But the problem is, even in lockdown, even with the world quiet, the loudest person in the room was the guy who had one of the worst death to survival ratios of COVID, and that was Trump. So him having his hand on the wheel with no guardrails, no checks, no barriers, no nothing, it's unprecedented. And he's got basically control of the government through his party. That's dangerous. There always has to be a check and a balance, and there's not one. There's not one with someone who has claimed that they never knew a Nazi, but then invited Nazis to Mar-a-Lago. Someone who claimed they did not know who David Duke was, but there are countless photos of him having met David Duke before. Someone who claimed that they were going to release their tax returns, but we still haven't fucking seen them. Someone who literally said there were good people on both sides when one side was Nazis. So, yeah. Lots of people are worried that this guy, once again, is in the White House. And I know you might say to Democratic voters, shut up, you had 4 years of Joe Biden. He didn't do anything. Technically, you're wrong and right. I mean, he did some things. Did a lot more than Trump did in his first presidency. But he did have no backbone. He did bend over willingly whenever Republicans in Congress basically cried foul. And that's a problem. The solution is not to hire the more radical guy to do the job. It never is. So in essence, you won. There's a cost, same as there will be a cost if a Democrat won. With Republicans, it's undeniable there will be a decline. And maybe to you it's still deniable and you have no reason to trust me, and I understand that. But in 4 years, if I'm still around and you're still around, let's come back and let's have this conversation. Or at least let's come together and shit on Democrats. I mean, I did do that in my previous video. Just saying, you should go watch it. Republicans, I think you just need to understand that there's a bottom line. You were never a part of the bottom line. You were a tool to stand on to get to the bottom line and push past it towards profits. And sure, a couple of you might be able to hold on and go past the bottom line to profits, but most of you won't. It's the old adage that we can't all be rich. But then again, what do I know? I'm just Minx28, and I appreciate you watching this video. I don't know if we're gonna get through these next 4 years. One can only hope, but I doubt it.